Gaming as an art medium isn't something that was always around. It was only in recent history that people have been able to take gaming seriously as an art form, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Bloodborne. Bloodborne is one of the greatest games ever made, period. The combat, the level design, the boss set pieces, and I would be crucified if I did not mention its legendary mix of the Victorian era with a dark, gruesome, eldritch art style. Bloodborne is one of those games that people have been begging for a sequel to for years, and while FromSoft has been making amazing games since then, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, and Armored Core 6 to name a few in recent history, they never dipped back into the eldritch nightmare that so many people praise as their masterpiece. However, FromSoft's unique take on video games spawned the Souls-like genre, attempting to copy Dark Souls. And while FromSoft had done similar games to Dark Souls, that was really the first game where they got the formula down to something that became so popular, it spawned genuinely almost every game they've made since then. They created a staple within the industry, and it's something that I find cool, but also disappointing in some ways because so many people try to copy it, but just copy it. They always lose the magic that FromSoft seems to always capture in their games. Games like Nioh, as an example, not to just trash on Nioh, but I've never felt that it could capture and have the true essence of what makes a FromSoft Souls-like so much fun. The dance is there, but there's no soul in it. No pun intended. However, that streak has been broken. Lies of P is an incredible game, and is easily one of the best games to release this year. And that's really saying something if you look at the competition it's stacked up against. Now, when I heard Round 8 Studios, a studio that it's worth mentioning never made an original IP, was attempting a spiritual successor to Bloodborne, using Pinocchio as its storytelling method, I didn't have a lot of faith. I figured it might be an unknown studio trying to get hype around their new game by comparing it to one of the greats. However, after finishing the game, I could not have been further from the truth. Lies of P is not only the best Souls-like, it's the closest you can get to Bloodborne 2 without being literally Bloodborne 2. And I think in a lot of ways, it actually does surpass Bloodborne, but you'll see what I mean when I get there. I'd much prefer, however, to start with the weakest things the game has, which I think is its mechanics. The elements are all there, but I can't help but compare it to Bloodborne in too many ways sometimes. Wow, that reminds me of this boss. Wow, this boss uses double bleed blades, just like this other one. Huh, this boss looks like that. I wonder if I dodge the same way it'll work. It does. The game also struggles with tracking when it comes to its boss's mechanics. The flashy attacks are there, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's just tracking my character. What I love about the FromSoft boss fights is that when you watch them happen, when you look at those moves, when you track the movement with your eyes, literally physically, you can predict how you should move almost in real life in your head, and then dodge that way in the game, and it will work. It's a very cool and satisfying thing because it draws you in on an almost caveman primal urge to fight and win. This game doesn't always have that. It always feels like it falls down to, let me count in my head how many seconds this attack lasts, and then hit the parry button or dodge button. That's not to say that the boss fights aren't fun. It's really cool to memorize the movesets, and they look really great. But I just wish it had that oomph, that, I don't know how to say it, that almost grind that you feel learning the move patterns instead of just kind of pacing it out in your head and guessing when to hit a button. Now, I'm sure people will say I'm being overly critical, and maybe in some ways I am because the game is so close to perfection in a lot of ways. I only criticize it this way because I don't have much else to criticize it for. It's really, really good. So that makes its little flaws stand out to me even more when I go looking back at it. Now, there are parts of its mechanics I do like. I really, really love the crafting system. I love mixing in and out blades, trying new things. Some people might say it's a novelty, but it was just so cool to get to make my own weapons. And while you do kind of build one you like and then stick with it, it was still a neat mechanic. I also like messing around with the different arms, legion weapons, modifications, just seeing what they offer. It adds a complexity to it that previous Souls games didn't have. I also like that other game mechanics from other Souls-style games are put into this. The Sekiro-style parry is the easiest one to talk about. Bloodborne didn't have a similar parry to that. You used a gun to parry. It's really cool to have that kind of almost katana dodge blade move that you can use to block like you do in Sekiro. It adds a whole nother level to how to play because you can stagger people easier, you can dodge around and then parry. It really makes it a little more complicated when it comes to the song and dance. It's also why I'm critical of the game leaning on tracking. If it didn't do that so much, the parrying and dodging system could be mixed together better, and it would really feel like this unique experience. It kind of misses out on that because of that, so it's a little bit disappointing. Thankfully, my complaints really end here. The game is really good in almost every other aspect. It doesn't try to copy the Eldritch Nightmare that Bloodborne's known for. Instead, it goes for Machina dystopia with a hint of that patented Eastern dark RPG kind of, wow, that's so gross, but I realize it's trying to talk about life at the same time. I mean, that is a little bit cliche, but I do love it when these games do that. It's a neat, special little way of taking this dark tale and making it relatable. I think Lies of P especially shines in its storytelling. A lot of the other FromSoft games, as much as I love them, kind of have a vague story to them. A lot of people make fun of them by saying, wow, I love what's happening, but I don't really understand it, but it looks cool, so I'll let go of it. Or, wow, that emotional moment would have hit harder. Guess I should have read all the secret logs that are hidden throughout this entire 100-hour experience. I never really had that feeling in Lies of P. I felt like discovering little things in the world actually were a puzzle piece, and I felt like I didn't need to find all of them, and I could still enjoy the story. I think the reason it feels this way is because it has really good source material, and shows a lot of love for its source material. Clearly the people who made this game like the tale of Pinocchio. They really think it's cool, and they want to do something special with it, and I really think they've done that. The story's emotional moments really, really hit. I don't find myself, as I said before, wishing I had found some little secret that let me know who this character is, so that when I have to fight them, kill them, or watch them die saving me, I would care. I actually just care immediately, because the game has pieced it together, but not too much to where I don't find that sense of exploration that these games are so known for rewarding. It's nice that the game doesn't just use an aesthetic to get its point across, but actually has coherent plot points that spin together with the aesthetic. That's really where I think this succeeds over Bloodborne. Bloodborne is truly carried by its aesthetic. Not to say that makes it bad, but it's just something worth pointing out. This game is not carried just by its aesthetic. The Pinocchio story fits incredibly well with the art they have done, and it's really worth mentioning how awesome that's feeling when you're fighting a boss and it actually makes sense to be fighting this boss, and you're like, yes, I want this. This feels like the right moment at the right time, and it's just beautiful. Taking the real boy storyline and mixing it with what does it really mean to be alive is an excellent way of getting your audiences emotionally invested in a story that they most likely already know the outcome of. I truly can't praise the game enough for this. I also want to mention that, as I said before, it doesn't go for the Eldritch Nightmare. It does keep that dark, gruesome Victorian era thing going on, but in a different way. And I think that it's important to note that, not just because there's robots over real people, but because it wants to express a different feeling, a different culture. Bloodborne always felt very, I don't know how to say this, British to me, and I guess that's part of its Victorian era style. Lies of P feels more French. Bloodborne comes off in this strictly horrific way, while also being deeply cosmic. However, Lies of P doesn't come off that way. It doesn't feel like this giant, grandiose, expansive as the universe, everything is meaningless kind of vibe that Bloodborne goes for. It has this more soft-spoken lover's tragedy thing going on, and I really, really like that. I know kind of what I just said was expansive and not super clear, but I think those are the right words to get across what I mean. I also want to mention before I end up wrapping this up that the level design is also really good in this game. I feel like that gets looked over a lot. The level design is legit really good. It feels a little bit linear compared to FromSoft, but to be honest, I can't really fault it for that. They're working at a different level on a different budget, and I think with what they did, they made an excellent job doing that, and it shouldn't be looked upon too harshly compared to its peers. What it's done with what it has is really, really good, and I do like it. So, is this game Bloodborne 2.0? No. Does it have full-on FromSoft boss design, battle mechanics, and level design? No, but it does get close. And does your nose grow? No, not unless you count the painting. It does grow in that one painting. But this is the closest a non-FromSoft title has ever gotten to being even close to that good. It outshines every other copycat Souls game on the market. Icarus does falter when he flies close to the sun, but to even get that close and bask in the glory of what came before you is a feat worthy of praise within itself. It's a shame that more people aren't playing and talking about this game. It's truly one of the best games I played this year, and I hope that its competition doesn't end up getting it lost in the sands of time. I'm giving Lies of P an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. This game is phenomenal. Please go check it out if you have any interest in any of this, and please, please, please send it some love if you can. It's really an awesome game, and I really hope more people check it out. Thank you all so much. Games are good. Play games. Bye, everybody. Peace!
Mais je reviens quand même. C'est plus fort que moi.